And a pleasant good afternoon to you. Hope everyone is doing okay. Welcome to Talk Show Presents. I'm Keith Williams, your host, and we have David Essel today as our guest. Obviously, he deals with a lot of things that are dealing with the field of mental health. And welcome to the show today.
Oh, it's great to be with you. And the topic is a crucial one for everyone all over the world, isn't it?
Yes. So before we dive into that, would you let everybody know who you are?
Oh, absolutely. 43 years now in the world of personal growth as a counselor, #1 best-selling author, master coach, minister. We cover it all here. And I started out in the world of sports psychology and then eventually evolved into working with every person in the world, regardless what their challenges are. We just last week had our last book, Helping Americans and the World Heal, go #1. So I'm excited to be with you today and to give some information to help people heal.
So yeah, so you kind of hit the nail on the head that mental health is like a big topic today, considering so many things is going on today. So I'm sure you've been watching the news, so you kind of have an idea of what's going on with that. So uh, based on based on watching the news and everything, what is the state of mental health is today?
Well, it's not in a very good place. The American Psychological Association came out with a survey a number of months ago that said about 80% of Americans alone, and I think this is pretty true for the world. Canada, Europe, all fall into the same statistics, I believe, but 80% say they've never had the type of stress they're going through, and they don't know how to deal with it. 40% of people responding to the survey said their depression and anxiety is worse than it's ever been. So even just those two statistics tell us that we're in a world of hurt, we're in a world of trouble, and we better start living differently if we want to get out of this mess, because this thing called COVID or the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, may never go away. So we need to learn how to deal with the stress and the pressures now and not wait 3 to 4 years down the road, hoping this is all going to change. Now is the time to get help.
You might not mention this, but we also in America, we're also seeing a greatly increase in violence.
Yes.
Where people are being killed and they have to bury their loved ones. That's causing a lot of stress, I'm sure. And then you had in the last couple of years that people are dying of COVID. So that's definitely been taking a toll on people as well. So basically, you're saying that the state of mental health in America is not a good one.
Now, it's really in a tough place. And then some of the things you just mentioned, in our book, we have an article that's entitled "The World is Grieving." And the world is grieving. I mean, we are seeing the pain, the irritability, the anger, the rage. We're seeing everything you're just mentioning to the surface. And it's all over. It's not just US, it's not just Canada, it is all over the place. So, the #1 step we always say is going to be self-care. People need to start spending less time on social media, less time on news, get the heck off of that stuff, spending more time taking care of our own mental health. That's the crucial point that I want to make today.
I talked about that all the time. I know for myself, I cut down on the news tremendously and even cut down on my social media use as well, because I definitely understand where you're going with that. We're dealing with a lot of bad news on social media and on mainstream media. Now I mentioned some of the things that are affecting the state of mental health. Did I leave anything out?
Well, PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, is sort of a phrase that we used to only use for the military,
Uh,
veterans coming home from war, struggling with PTSD. What we've seen with the pandemic is we have more and more people that don't even know they're dealing with PTSD. As a matter of fact, another writing in the book, I talk about a client who came to me and she said, David, I'm struggling. I just think I have a low-grade depression. I don't feel myself. I'm wondering if you can help me out. After 4 weeks of working together, we found out that in the last year and a half, she had gone through a divorce. Her 2 dogs of 13 years had died. She lost her job, she lost her house, and she gained 80 pounds. And I looked at
wow.
her and I said, this isn't clinical depression. This is PTSD. This is post-traumatic stress disorder. You've gone through so much, and your self-care, taking care of yourself, exercise, diet, meditation, some people prayer, has gone to zero. So you're not just dealing with a low-grade depression, it's actually full-blown PTSD. And people have to understand that if we're not taking care of ourselves since the beginning of COVID, and there's other statistics out, in the United States of America alone, we have over 85% of our Americans overweight or obese. And that's a 10% increase in the last 2 years. That's huge. And that's a lack of self-care. So people are self-medicating with food and alcohol. Instead of dealing with the issues, we're trying to cover them up. And it's been happening at a higher rate over the last 2 to 3 years.
Do you think a lot of people are not able to do that because, maybe because they cannot afford to see a counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist? I mean, let's be real, medical
Yeah,
care, in this country is not really affordable and accessible to everyone.
that's
That's
right.
definitely
And
something
here,
we
and
have.
here's one of the advantages of the internet. This is one of the advantages. If you're struggling with depression, with anxiety, with addiction, if you're struggling with relationship challenges or anger, irritability, and you don't have the money for a therapist, counselor, coach, psychiatrist, go online, Google the signs and symptoms. Google, how do I heal my irritability during the pandemic? How do I heal my anger, rage during the pandemic? And then the other thing we have to remember, there's a lot of churches and spiritual organizations that do offer free or very low cost counseling. So if you don't have very much money, I'd go to your local, it doesn't matter if it's a temple, a synagogue, a church, go to a local spiritual center or religious center. Let them know you're suffering, you're struggling. Ask them if they have any type of help. And you'd be amazed at how many of these organizations will open their arms and welcome you in, if not for free, for a very, very low fee. I used to be the pastor of a church years and years ago, and we would have people coming in that could pay $5 for a session or $10 for a session, and we would welcome them because it was the only place they could go to. So don't give up. If you're struggling with anything we're discussing today, go to the internet, look for help. Go to your local religious spiritual centers, ask for help. Help is there. Now, you may have to do some digging, but don't give up on yourself.
What do you think the reason why people are, not seeking mental health?
Well,
Because
it's, yeah,
I get all the time that you have people would say, well, then they say they can't help me or they're too judgmental. What do you think?
well, I think a lot of people are afraid to be honest, quite frankly, and they're afraid to go into someone and tell them what's really going on. How much are they drinking? How much are they overeating? That's what a therapist, counselor, coach is going to ask. And there's a lot of people that don't want to change. They're not happy with
Mm.
who they are, but they don't want to stop drinking or stop overeating. So they don't ask for help because they know if they ask for help, the therapist or the professional, the minister, the priest, or the rabbi, whoever you're going to work with is going to say, you have to make changes. You've got to cut back on certain things. And a lot of people don't want to hear that.
So it's not so much that people are judgmental. It's more to the point that it's more to the point that people don't want to. It's more to the point that people don't want to change. Is that
Yeah, change is hard, right? Like I'm a former alcoholic, 30 years. I was an alcoholic. I started at 12. It was really hard for me to, I'm a freaking counselor, and it was hard for me to change. It was hard for me to ask for help. So I understand how hard change is. You know, we're afraid if someone takes my alcohol away, how am I going to deal with stress and worry and anxiety and depression? If someone takes my sugar away, now sugar hits the brain the same freaking place alcohol does. So if you go to someone and you're overweight, struggling, and you're eating way too much junk food or way too much sugar, they're going to say, we need you to change your diet. But a lot of us don't want to change our diet, just like I didn't want to give up alcohol. Now, when I finally made that change, my whole life changed for the better. But it's hard. Change is hard. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try, but it's hard to change.
Oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, I hear that a lot. I've seen that a lot, myself. But going back to, because going back to this thing with the news and the media and mental health, how does that correlate with each other?
Well, if you think about the news, news is based on sensationalism. And so sensationalism sells. So when you have announcers every night talking about the bad things happen in the world and making them even worse by constantly talking about them, and if you're viewing, you're watching, you're listening, all of that information is getting stuck in your subconscious mind. So all you're hearing over and over again is how terrible things are and how terrible people are and how terrible the government is and how terrible it goes on and on and on. So what we say is eliminate news completely. Completely eliminate the news. If something's happening that's big and huge, your next door neighbor, your brother, a friend, someone's going to reach out to you and tell you that there's a hurricane coming or there's a tornado coming if you're fortunate enough to have the tornado warning signs. So I think we need to get real serious. Stop worrying about people judging us. Therapists, counselors, priests, we're trained to not judge. We're trained to look at someone and to say, hey, I'm here to help you, but I can only help you if you're honest. So get off the news, because right away, that's going to help open up some brain space for good stuff. And then when you have that time, there's a lot of people that'll spend 1, 2, 3, 4 hours watching newscast after newscast. When they get rid of it, they're going to go through withdrawal. They're going to crave to watch the news. They're going to come up with statements like, oh, but I have to be informed. I can't miss anything. And so what we say to those people is, when you completely eliminate the news, just like I did several years ago, it's amazing how much easier it is to start to deal with the stress we're going through. And I'm not saying it's going to be super easy, but it's a lot easier when when you're not bombarded daily with negativity from the news.
Wait a minute. So it's kind of like a person that's strung out on drugs and they decide to quit cold turkey, they get withdrawals. It works the same way.
It sure does. And I'll tell you
'Cause I
another way it works. For people who are addicted, and we become addicted to the news. I've got to know what's next. I've got to be home at 6. I got to watch at 11, and it's all sensationalism. But the same thing is happening with social media. We have so many people addicted to social media. I'm working with a young man out of London who is on social media over 12 hours a day until we started working together. We've got him down to 3 hours a day, but he went through withdrawal. Every day that he was on 3 hours, he kept picking up his phone. And he said, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to put it down. And he'd pick it up again. Oh, that's right, I'm supposed to put it down. So there is withdrawal. Now, he is telling me he's having a super hard time staying at 3 hours a day. And the reason why is because his brain has become addicted to the dopamine hits from the social media. And what does that mean? When you look at something on social media, and let's say it irritates you, well, there's a dopamine hit in the brain. And most people go, oh, I have to respond to that person. They're wrong, or whatever it is. So what we try to do is get people to realize that social media and the news are both training you to be in bad moods, to really look at depression and anxiety as a real thing. And when I'm on social media, I'm only looking for pictures of nature. I'm looking for positive quotes. I'm looking for things to share. But if there's anything on my social media that is controversial or someone's arguing with other people, I just skip right by, scroll right by. But if I could give everyone one crucial tip, that will help change your life right now. It's the first hour of every day should be electronic free. No phones, no tablets, no television, no radio, no iPads, nothing for the first hour. Take that hour and put it into self-care, put it into journaling, put it into learning how to meditate. If you're into prayer, pray your little head off for that first hour, but stay away from anything electronic. Allow the brain to wake up naturally. But if you pay attention, even to television commercials right now, there are so many commercials where they're showing someone waking up in the morning, reaching over to the side of their bed and picking up their phone first thing in the morning. That's called an addiction. Alcoholics who have a drink first thing in the morning, they've got the bottle right on their bedside. Social media addicts have their bottle right on the bedside. It's called an iPhone or an Android. We are so addicted, it's ridiculous. So we say, keep your phones in another room. If you're addicted to social media or the news or anything on your phone, your iPad, never have it in your bedroom. Always have it in another room at night. So that first hour of the day, you're not even tempted to pick up that addictive device.
I'm curious to know when a person goes to withdraw from watching the news or being on social media, what is that like?
Anxiety. It's pure anxiety. So you're sitting there and you're used to in the morning grabbing that phone and you can't, and you start feeling anxious. I'm missing out on something. I wonder if I got an email from somebody. I can wonder if I got a text from someone. I wonder if someone posted on my social media wall. You can't have it, so you start to get anxious. And just like my client in London, every 10 minutes he's picking up the phone and then he has to put it down and go, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be on it right now. But that addiction is anxiety. And so all of us, and if you want to quit smoking, you're going to feel anxiety. Drinking, you're going to feel anxiety. You want to get away from fast food, junk food, sugar, you're going to feel anxiety. That's withdrawal. But the good news is, if you hang in there long enough and don't pick up the phone and stay with that first hour electronic free and don't eat the sugar and don't drink the alcohol, within anywhere from 60 to 90 days, that anxiety will start to drop dramatically and you can be back in control of your mental health.
Uh, I also too, I noticed on social media that there are law firms that say that if you have been mentally affected by social media, that you can call them and they can get you compensation. I've seen ads like that on social media. I mean, it's just ridiculous. These ads. I mean, just
That's crazy. I've never seen that, but that's pretty crazy. And,
yeah.
I'll tell you, and addiction to social media is a choice. It's a choice. I can't imagine them ever winning a lawsuit because no one puts a gun to your head and says you have to be on social media. Your boss doesn't say to you, I want you on social media 12 hours a day or I'm going to fire you. They want the opposite. So I can't imagine any lawsuit going through with that and actually being successful, quite frankly, because it's a choice. It's like you can't sue an alcohol company because you're an alcoholic. You're the one that picked up the drink and put it in your mouth. They didn't come to your door, tie you down and make you drink. So it's the same thing with suits. When people try to pull a suit against an alcohol company because they're an alcoholic, they're never going to win. It's called a free choice, free will. So if you're addicted to social media, that's on you. Has nothing to do with Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. It has nothing to do with them. Has everything to do with you. And if you don't have the strength to stop, you need to get help because it's going to get worse.
Why are not people getting help?
Well, we mentioned earlier, it's hard to change. It's really hard to change and people don't want to. They say they want to change. They say they want to have a better life and less anxiety, less depression, less overeating, less drinking. But you really can only tell how serious that someone is by the actions they take. So you can say all day long, I'm going to get rid of this and I'm going to stop that. But until you actually do something, all you're doing is blowing into the wind. You're not doing anything good for yourself at all. It's hard. I'll keep going back to this. Change is difficult. Change is not easy. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but we have to walk into it knowing it's hard. A number of months ago, I wrote an article about my first year of sobriety. Now, I'm a counselor. You'd think I would know how to get myself into sobriety, and the first year I should be able to handle it. That's not true. My first year was hell on earth. I had a horrendous first year of sobriety. I was filled with anxiety, filled with depression, frustrated as could be because I didn't have my drug of choice. The drug that used to put me asleep at night, the drug that used to shut my brain off because my brain goes 24/7. It didn't have that drug. So I had to go through that whole year. But here's the great news. After working through that whole year and having a support team helping me as well, year 2 was so easy. And it's been many, many, many years. And I want to make a mention to this of how powerful recovery can be. In the last year and a half, both my mother and father died. And I was a very fortunate individual that in the last many years of our lives, I had a great relationship with my mother and father. As a child, I had a terrible relationship. In my teens, horrendous. It didn't start to heal until I was in my late 20s and 30s. And finally, I got a great relationship with my mom and dad. They became everything to me. They became my life. I would post every day, believe it or not, on social media for, God, 15 years, pictures of them. I love them so much. I didn't even live anywhere near them anymore, but I love them so much. And they both died in the last year and a half. And here's the important part of the story. There was not one time I ever thought about having a drink. And if I wanted to justify having a drink, I could have easily done it with my mom dying first and then my dad died. The change was hard. The change to get sober was hard. The rewards have magnified the change. And 20 plus years of sobriety allowed me to deal with the most difficult thing I've ever gone through in my life without sabotaging my health and my mind and body by drinking. And this message is available to anyone. I had to get help. I had to raise my hand and say, as a counselor, I can't get myself sober. I had to be vulnerable. I had to be honest. I had to follow other people's opinions, which I'm not easy to do. I'm very thick-headed at times. And I had to follow their advice and do things I didn't want to do. Every person who's a part of this show right now, I want you to know that this is the secret to success. Doing what you'd rather not do every day of your life. That's how we drop habits. That's how we gain self-confidence. That's how we gain self-esteem. That's how we gain self-love, by respecting our mind, bodies, and spirits, stopping the self-sabotaging habits of alcohol, food, social media, video games, television, and loving ourselves, proving we love ourselves via action, not words, not thoughts, but by action. And if you want to know if someone loves themselves, look at how they treat themselves. Look at what they eat. Look at what they watch. Look at what they listen to. Look at what they do in their free time. You'll know quite quickly if they're in love with themselves or not. This message with you today is really spreading the message of self-love. I want everyone with us to wake the hell up. Take care of yourself. Use your smarts, use your brain. You know what food is healthy. You know exercise is healthy. If you're not exercising, get out there. 15 minutes a day. As a matter of fact, here's a study I want to share for people that don't exercise. This came out years ago. They took 2 groups of individuals. One, they had walked 6 times a day for 10 minutes. At the end of the day, it was 60 minutes of walking. The other group walked 60 minutes straight, all at one time. At the end of 12 weeks, there was no difference in weight loss. In other words, the group that walked 6 times a day for 10 minutes lost just as much weight as the group that walked 60 minutes straight. So if you walk 6 times a day for 10 minutes, that's self-love. That is proving you're loving yourself. If you can walk for an hour straight, great. But if you can't, it doesn't matter. Everyone can fit in 6 10-minute walks a day. So let's really get into this self-care and self-love. And if we do this, our lives will be radically changed. And it doesn't have to take that long. A few months down the road of changing your habits can give you huge rewards, but you have to start today.
Okay, now how does these issues affect mental health? Coronavirus, reality TV, inflation,
Well,
um,
you know, those are 3
gun,
great
gun, gun,
topics.
gun violence.
Yeah, you know, these are great topics. And so let's talk about the economy. Anytime we go into inflation, it will hurt most people pretty deeply, but we know it's coming. We know it's here. So this is the time to really use your brains. Start cutting back on your expenses. That's the number one key in any type of economic crash, is for individuals to be responsible for your expenses. You start to cut back your expenses dramatically, and guess what? Your income becomes more valuable, even during inflation. So mental health is going to affect us. We're going to feel uncomfortable when the economy is starting to slow down or crash. But if you're proactive and you start to decrease your expenses, it won't hurt you as hard as it might your next door neighbor. Mental health is choices. And unfortunately, the choices that most people are making, let's go back to the statistic from the American Psychological Association I shared right at the top of the show. 80% of Americans do not have the emotional coping skills to deal with the stress they're going through. So what we're talking about today is crucial. Let's get rid of some of the things that are creating stress. Going back to, I have a client, I got done working with him because we helped him heal. He played video games 12 hours a day. And this wasn't a 12-year-old kid or an 18-year-old kid. This was an older individual, over 30, that was addicted to video games. Well, that's going to screw with your mental health. Listen, when you're not getting the right sleep, or you're scrolling in bed at night with your phone or your iPad, you are screwing with the sleep cycle called the circadian rhythm. You're destroying it with the blue light coming out of your iPad, your phone, or even the TV. So see, these are all personal responsibilities. We have so much control of our mental health. If we listen to what you and I are talking about, if people would apply what I'm sharing with you today, our mental health would radically start to turn around all over the world. But do you want to know something? People are lazy as hell. People are lazy. And if you think I'm calling you out, if you're lazy, I'm calling you out, because you are smarter than this. You're smarter than the way you're acting. Use your brain and get yourself into a better state of mental health by looking at your daily habits, what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, what you eat, if you exercise or not, what you drink. And the other thing I want to mention is this: our mental health is also tied into who we hang around with. If you're hanging around with people that love conspiracy BS, if you're hanging around with people that love to argue about the government, argue about the pandemic, your mental health is going to suck. You may have to let go of people. You may have to say, I'm going to interact with this individual 10% of the time now, because all they're doing is talking nonsense. They're bringing me down. You may have to cut some people out of your life. That's life. It's more important that you protect your mental health than you worry about people talking behind your back because you've decided to let someone go. Be strong. Take care of that mental health. When you let go of people that aren't healthy for you, you open the spaceway for better people to come in, smarter people to come in, healthier people to come in. And that's what we need, because mental health, it's a village, it's a city, it's a country. You've got to be surrounded by strong people to help lift up your own mental health.
Um, do you think do you think mental health facilities are doing a good job in addressing mental illness in people? What if it's the private sector, or is the governmental sector? Because I know each state has like their own mental health department. I'm
Yeah.
here in Alabama, and I'm telling you, the Alabama Department of Mental Health, it sucks. Now in New
Yeah.
York, they is one of the best. So kind of share some of that, or do they need to, or do they have some work to do?
I think we all have a lot of work to do. The government with our veterans and our active military, it's really sad, what's going on there. When most veterans or active military come in for mental health help, they're given drugs. They don't have enough counselors. They don't have enough therapists. And so I work with veterans and I work with active military because they don't have the enough accessibility to really excellent counselors and therapists coming through the government. That's just a fact. And I hear it all the time by veterans and active military. So we have a long way to go. I think the mental health care in this country is terrible, quite frankly, in the public sector. In the private sector, I think we're kicking butt. I think we're doing great. We've got excellent counselors, excellent therapists that are doing everything they can to help this country to heal. The government, I don't see it happening. Now, I'm not anti-government. I'm not pro-government. I'm actually quite apolitical. I stay away from politics in general, but I hear the information enough from the active military and the veterans to say that our government is not anywhere near doing enough to help this country with mental health issues. And by the way, we also hear it from the EMS and the first responders and the police and the firemen. We hear it from all these sectors, not just the military. These people are, as a matter of fact, talking about New York City, about 8 months ago on a radio show I was hosting, I had the captain from one of the fire departments, one of the largest fire departments in New York City, on as a guest. In the last 8 months, 4 of his top men had committed suicide in New York City in that one firehouse, and he was the leader of the EMS unit. He said, David, we're running 24 hours a day. We're not allowed days off. And on our days off, we're also almost always called in. There's no mental health support for us. Now, think about this. This is the EMS, the fire departments in New York City, of all places. And these people are underserved. Our first responders are underserved. And it's being proven by the number of suicides. There's 160 suicides a day in the United States of America. There's 25 veterans a day that take their lives. They commit suicide in the United States of America. Those numbers are going up. They're not going down. That tells us that we are failing our citizens. We're failing our first responders. And I don't mind calling these people out and saying you're failing. I don't mind doing that at all, because there's so much we could be doing to help these people, and we are not.
So you said that there are a shortage of counselors and therapists.
Yeah, well, there's
Why
a
do you think?
shortage. Now, I will tell you, there's plenty of therapists and counselors, and I'll give you a personal example. I reached out to the US government in 2015 when we went through the economic crash, and I told them that I would be available as a minister or as a counselor to help veterans and active military deal with the economic fallout. It was around 2008, 2009, if I remember correctly. Do you know that I never got a response? I never got a response from the chaplain services. I've never got a response from the US government. I never got a response from the counseling department with the US government. I never got a response from anyone. And here I am, a private practicing counselor offering my services. I never heard from anyone. So that kind of tells us that, wait a second, I'm sure I'm not unique. There are counselors out there to work, but is the government willing to put the money into counselors to help the United States of America heal? As of right now, we have not seen that happen.
So basically, if you're a counselor and therapist, you pretty much have to like really work hard to really put yourself out there.
You really have to put, and as a minister and a former pastor, like when I hit a dead wall saying I'd love to work for the government and to help our people heal, I went after the chaplain services for the US military, because it's amazing how ministers can help people. Still, no words, no responses. So we have to look at this and say, look, I know the government is overwhelmed with everything going on, but look at, you mentioned earlier, violence. Look at what's happened in the last 3 years between grief, violence, the rise of addictions, the rise. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. But we don't see anyone coming out of the woodwork and saying, we're going to do something different. We're going to offer free counseling for communities. We're going to have every Tuesday night in your city in Alabama, at this church, at this recreation center, we're going to have a stadium full of people, and we're going to have mental health professionals talking about how to deal with anxiety, depression, addiction, PTSD. I mean, that would be something brilliant for the government to do. And the government has plenty of facilities to hold these kind of meetings in. Why aren't we doing this? You know, why aren't we taking care of our people? It's questions that have not been answered as of yet. But maybe with your podcast, maybe someone's going to hear this and listen to it and take it seriously and go somewhere where they have an impact. And then maybe they have a contact in Congress. Maybe they have a contact in Alabama government. And they go, hey, we were just listening to this podcast, and they were talking about doing Tuesday evenings, helping individuals with depression, addiction, anxiety. Let's do it. Who knows where your podcast may reach? Who knows who might be listening that can actually make a difference? I am glad that you and I are having this conversation, because we've been making a difference since COVID started. We've offered we have a free program right now that anyone can join. It's called Helping Americans Heal. Go to my website, talkdavid.com, sign up. Helping Americans Heal. The very first thing you're going to get is our book on positive thinking. You're going to get a free freaking book in your email on how to think more positively. Then every Monday, you're going to get an email from us with videos, with articles, with free meditation practices, and all this other kind of stuff. So we're making a difference. We're helping Americans heal. And as a matter of fact, this is a copy of the brand new book, Helping Americans Heal, The Ultimate Guide to Healing During These Challenging Times. Last week, it went #1 bestseller on Amazon. And we have not only created the book, but we've also created the free online program. So come to the website, join the program, get information that can help you with your mental health, physical health. Everything's at talkdavid.com. And the great news is Helping Americans Heal, the online program, costs $0. And this is what we should be doing. This is what the government should be doing. I'm a private individual. I'm putting my own time, money, and effort into a free program for America. Why isn't the government?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because I'll tell you why. Because we're reactive, not responsive.
Amen.
We are
Go
too
ahead.
reactionary and not responsive.
100%. I love what you just said. And, in the private sector, we're the opposite. We're proactive. In the government section, you're reactive. We're proactive. So, you've got to look at the difference. Look, 2 years ago, when I created the free program, Helping Americans Heal, we went after veterans, first responders, and then Americans. And we've got all kinds of people in the program. No one asked me to do it. No one paid me to do it. I paid my staff to put it together. I put my time, effort, and money, my own money. I didn't borrow it from the government to put it in. I used my own money. Why can't the government do it? Your answer is correct. It's reactive. And this is why I'm saying this interview we're having right now is so crucial. There might be, I'm going to say there will be someone that's going to hear this and go, holy crap, those two guys are dead on. One is saying that the government is way too reactive, waiting for problems to happen. And then once they happen, spending way too much time talking about doing something versus just freaking doing something. And then you have the private sector where I fall into place. We're proactive as hell. We're forecasting. We're looking ahead. We're saying, hey, this is going to get worse. We better do something. And then we also understood when we put the program together, Helping Americans Heal, that there's a lot of people struggling right now without any money. If you want to work with me, go to talkdavid.com. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, I'm worth it. If you don't have money, don't worry. Go to talkdavid.com. You're still going to get my information. It's going to help you heal, but you have to get off your butt on the computer, type in talkdavid.com, sign up. You're going to instantly get the positive thinking book, and it could be the stepping stone for you to start healing your own mental health. Don't wait for someone to save you. The Calvary is not coming. The Savior is you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about your book and your website, but it looks like you are already getting, into that. So if you want to continue, talking about those two things, that would be great.
Oh, absolutely. So, with the book, what we did, Helping Americans Heal, we have 100 writings in the book. And in there, we talk about everything we're going through. How do you deal with grief? How do you deal with weight gain? How do you deal with anxiety, depression, PTSD? How do you deal with relationships that are going down the tube? How do you deal with the lack of money? How do you deal with trying to find a job if you've maybe been laid off? So in the book, we have 100 writings to give people the information necessary so they can start to take care of their mental health, physical health, relationships, etc. I would say grab the book. It's extremely inexpensive. It's at Amazon.com. And at the same time, join the program. Like in the last week, we've had articles coming out once again on grieving, on addiction. We've had articles coming out on how to turn relationships around that are struggling during the pandemic. So when you join the program, you're going to get all this stuff for free. And we really want you to take advantage of it. We're opening up this program for 500,000 people. When we hit 500,000, we're going to shut it down and cap it and keep it at that number. So there's still time to join. And this is the day. I mentioned something earlier. Healing mental health has to be our decision. We're the ones that have to first start and say, I don't feel good. I'm feeling under the weather. I'm feeling depressed. I'm always anxious. I'm not sleeping well. I'm overeating or over drinking. These are all signs of stress. So the very first thing we have to do is say, I know I'm not myself. I need to get some help. And then, as I mentioned earlier, grab the book for help, go online and Google questions for help, but don't sit on your hands. We need to start the self-care ourselves, then reach out. If you can afford professional help, go for it. If you can't, do what I said earlier. There's plenty of ministers I know and other people involved in the world of spirituality and religion that would love to help you, but you need to ask for help.
And I think that's like the really big problem, right now, that, we have a lot of people that are saying that, I'm tired of asking for help. I'm crying for help, but no one, wants to help me. So they end up shutting down, and they stop asking for help. I've seen that. I also seen, where you mentioned that people are too proud, they're too arrogant. They say, I don't need help.
Right.
I got the pills, I got the bottle, I got food, they're, that's reactionary. That's
Yeah.
not that's not that's not responding to, your mental health. And I understand that there are some people that said that, I can't get professional, help because, I don't have the money, or I don't have the money, I had to travel so far just to go to the hospital, or I don't have insurance. So
Right.
what do you say to those people who are saying those things?
Well, let's also remember these other organizations, the Rescue Mission, the Salvation Army. A lot of those organizations have professional help, counselors on staff, ministers on staff. So, I think there's more organizations out there that people can ask for help for than we even want to admit. You don't have to be homeless to get help from a rescue mission or the Salvation Army. They're both great organizations. But the bottom line is this, and I know what you said is true. People get tired of asking for help, and they get tired of being rejected. They get tired of not having the money. We have to keep moving forward anyway. Doing what you don't want to do, I mentioned this earlier in the show, is one of the greatest ways to turn around your mental health. Doing what you don't want to do. So you go to one minister or one temple or one synagogue and they say no. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. Go to the rescue mission. Go to the Salvation Army. Go to your local organizations of mental health and ask for help. There's another organization called NAMI, the National Association for Mental Illness. Then there's a NAMI office, NAMI, in almost every larger city in the United States of America. They're a great resource. So we need to get these messages out there of the organizations that are available. And there are plenty of organizations available. And then we've got to convince people not to give up on their mental health and their self-care. It's easy. And listen, if you're watching the news, hell, I'd probably start drinking again too. Now, I won't, but if I was going to start watching the news and I watched it every day, I'd get sick and tired of that crap. And I'd say, I want to shut this down. So I'd probably go grab a drink and start drinking again. See, these are the triggers for mental health issues. The triggers: social media, television, conspiracy videos on YouTube. Oh my God, do you know how many conspiracy theorists on YouTube with millions of followers putting out garbage, putting out nonsense? They've got all these people all fired up about, the government's lying about this or the government's not. Get off of this crap, this conspiracy. I just worked with two clients who had incredible road rage, and they had been struggling with road rage for the last 2 years. When I asked them to write down everything they watched, listened to, and read, I said, I got you, guy. I got you. I know why you're pissed off. I know why you're screaming in traffic. I know everything about why you're doing. They're looking at me like, how do you know? I said, you just gave me all the answers. Look at what you listen to, all that garbage. In the car, you're listening to these podcasts that are screaming conspiracy. Who's going to be in a good mood listening to that crap? You're watching the news every night. You're pulling over on the side of the road to talk to a buddy about who just found this secret channel on the internet that has the truth about the pandemic. Well, there's 10,000 secret channels on the internet that all have the right answer. So get the hell off of this stuff. Use your brains. Allow your brain to be fed good information. If the information isn't uplifting, isn't beautiful, get rid of it. That's how we turn our mental health around.
And for you, David, and the viewers out there, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm actually a certified counseling practitioner.
Awesome. Love it.
And I would love to, to work with you to, um, to help you with this program, and, to get people to, really, really need to advocate, not only just mental health in general, but to compel people, like, if you're going through something, you don't have to go through it alone. There are people out there, to
Yeah.
help you. I am open to, hold on, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I am open to, I'm open to help people, as well. We have the telehealth, method. If you don't feel comfortable, talking to someone, in person, I'm available for that,
Right.
as well. And I'm quite sure that, David here, has a similar option to where, you can get help. But one thing I always say to people is that I can't help you unless you acknowledge that you have a problem. You know,
Amen.
I can't help you if you don't acknowledge that you have a problem, because that means, in my generation, we say that you're in denial.
That's right.
You're in denial, or you're delusional, or
Mhm.
something like that. And that's kind of true, because you are living in what I call a blind reality. You're living a reality that is not true.
Right. 100%.
Your
And listen,
reality.
I lived in that denial for 30 years. I knew I had a problem with alcohol. I didn't want to admit it. I was embarrassed, right? As a counselor, to say that you have a problem with alcohol, that is an embarrassing position to be in. So I just hid it. I kept it a secret. I didn't let people know how much I drank every day of the week. And it's hard to come out and be vulnerable. Even as a counselor, it's hard to do it, but we have to. And I appreciate so much your offer of, spreading the message. I mean, any people that you know of that could benefit from being a part of our free program, the online program, Helping Americans Heal, we would love for you to bring them, into the program. I'd love for you to join the program so you can see, the information we're sharing, and maybe you have clients that could benefit as well. But, we decided to do it for free. We're going to keep it for free. We know the country needs free help. We know there's a lot of people that are struggling financially. You have the same attitude and mindset that I do. We're working together right now in a beautiful way, spreading this message. And I hope America will really take it seriously and say, and here's two guys that are talking, two men, for God's sake, that are talking about mental health. They're both counselors. They're both in this as a profession, and they're saying they want to help. This is the message that's missing. We have too many people stuck on the news and social media, not listening to podcasts like yours and hearing that there's help available, help for free, even, for gosh sake. So I applaud you as a professional for you mentioning that you're here in the same boat I am, saying, let's get people the help they need. Let's get them the tools to begin the process of healing. It can take a while for these things to move away, but every step, every day that you do one thing positive for your own mental health, one thing positive, self-care, it has a domino effect. It starts to build. A year from now, you will not recognize who you are. If you start today, oh my God, a year from now, you're going to be a totally different person. So let's start today.
And all of these things, that you mentioned, it does not involve drugs. Is that right?
No, nothing. No pharmaceuticals, no medicine at all. Now, I will say this. In 1990, I personally had a failed suicide attempt. And that year turned me into this most amazingly deep individual that dedicated the rest of their life to mental health. When I saw as a counselor that I could avoid and deny the anxiety, the depression that had been going on for years, covering it up, I was self-medicating with alcohol. In 1990, I reached a point I didn't want to be here anymore. I am so grateful I failed, because now I can say to you as an audience and as a human being, I am with you. I understand struggle. I understand loss. I understand stress. I understand depression and anxiety. I understand suicidal ideation. Yes, I understand it all. And because of that past experience, my devotion to the world of mental health has never been higher than it is right now. I thought I was very excited in 1992 when I committed my life to mental health and helping others. It's 2022. I'm even more committed now. I want to see people like you and I featured. I want to see us out there. I want to see people acknowledging that there are human beings that care, that love other human beings. Doesn't matter your freaking nationality, your religion, your color, your gender. I could give a crap about all of that. I want to help. And I know I can see in your face that you are the same type of person that I am. Let's get rid of all this nonsense and just be human beings. Let's care. You know, I have a huge affinity to the homeless. It's a long story. I won't get into it, but I really care a lot about the homeless. I care a lot about people struggling with addictions. I care about a lot of people. And I think it's that caring that's missing so much in our world today. Everyone is so judgmental. Everyone is so ready to rip someone's head off. You know, we're all irritable. I'm irritable at times, for God's sake. And I know I'm irritable. I can tell when those days are hitting me that are tougher than others. So I understand the stress that we're under, but I also understand this. I have a counselor. I have support people. I have people and found people that will love me for who I am, even when I'm having a shitty day. I want to be that person for you. I want to be that person that you can reach out to and maybe just text every once in a while if I can support you via text or support you. You had mentioned telehealth. You know, there's all different kinds of ways we can help. And again, that's why we created the free online program. You can get the information, but then it's up to you to use it. I pray that you'll use everything that we are talking about today for your betterment, for your mental health, for your self-care. And I want to make this mention again. If you follow what we're talking about today and take one step a day to enhance your self-care, your self-love, you will not recognize who you are in a year. You're going to radically change in the most positive, beautiful way. Your confidence will increase. Your self-esteem will increase. When you are vulnerable and admit you need help and go out and get it, it's incredible how life will change for you. You don't have to do a thing but change your own mindset, your actions on a daily basis, and life will reward you in ways that we can't even imagine.
I have to ask this question here too. I know we are running out of time, but we probably won't go over. So be it. But I think that this is a really important topic to discuss. It's probably going to take more than an hour. But I have to ask this: do you believe that some people use mental health as an excuse to justify their irresponsible and wrong behavior? You know, like for example, look at the school shootings, you know, that they have. You know, mental health comes into play, you know, in that, you know, in the news. But when I did some research on, I actually done a podcast on this on school shootings, and I discovered that 78% of the school shootings that have taken place has nothing to do with a person's mental health.
Thank you.
I did a
Thank you
whole,
for
I did a
saying.
whole, I did a whole podcast. You know, I did a whole podcast on this.
Yeah.
You know, these are premeditated, you know, incidents that a person is not mentally incapacitated, but
Right.
they are indulged with basically, you know, hatred. You
Oh,
know,
great point. So let's go right to Buffalo, New York. About 4 months ago, right after the Uvalde shooting massacre in Texas, Buffalo, New York, a racist man walks into a supermarket and kills I don't know how many people, and they called it a mental health issue. Well, let's back up for a second. He made multiple trips with a conscious mind from 200 miles away to scout the store. He made multiple trips to see when would the most Black people be in that store. This is not a mentally ill person that didn't know what he was freaking doing. Could he be mentally ill? Oh, yeah. But don't use that as an excuse that someone has a capacity to plan someone has a capacity to drive, someone has a capacity to purchase firearms, someone has a capacity to be filled with hate. That is called a freaking choice. I do not allow, just like what you're just saying, I'm not allowing these people to get off scapegoating by saying it wasn't my fault, I have mental health issues. There are some people with serious mental health issues that may not know what they're doing, but the rest of them, the planning is so intense. You can't plan like that and not be consciously grounded. These people are filled with hatred. They're filled with anger. They've been bullied. They've been mistreated. Yes, there's a bunch of that goes on. Their childhood, they could have been raped. There could be all kinds of things that create this demonic side of them. But then also, there's a choice. The individual that did the racist killing in Buffalo, New York, was heavily involved on secret channels on social media, telling people that he was going to kill people. Those individuals on these secret channels, the underground channels, which means that Facebook is responsible, that all these other places that are not monitoring the secret rooms, the secret chat rooms, well, give me a freaking break. They couldn't be secret from Facebook because Facebook created the damn secret chat room. So don't give me this crap that they didn't know what was going on. And it's not just Facebook. There are other platforms with these secret chat rooms. Well, this murderer, this killer, this racist in Buffalo, New York, was a part of those chat rooms. He was telling people what he was going to do, and no one had the balls to stand up and make a call. Why? Because they're all the same mindset: hatred, prejudice. So let's get back to this as an area that we need help with. Let's get back to accepting others that are not of the same gender, race, color. Let's get back to working on these issues. And let's also start putting pressure on these social media platforms to start really watching what's going on in the secret rooms. And they are responsible for reporting to the police if there's racist groups that are planning some type of an attack. It's the social media platform that need to be called out, shut down, whatever is happening. How our government, let's go back to the government. How does the government, I know as much, the government knows much more about I do than of the Buffalo supermarket shooting. How could they allow that social media platform where this racist killer was ranting about going to Buffalo and killing people? How could that platform still be alive? How could they not be shutting down the secret chat rooms? I understand free speech, the Second Amendment. I don't agree with it when it comes to this. I think our government is putting its head in the sand, washing his hands, just like Pontius Pilate did 2,500 years ago. Wake up, America. Wake up.
Well, how about the January 6th? How
Oh,
about the attack at the Capitol on January, the 6th?
same
You
thing.
know,
And guess,
planned by the government. It was planned by the government. It was advertised on social media, and it was not just in Washington D.C. neither. During that time, after the 2020 election, I took a vacation in Atlanta, and when I'm glad I didn't stay in a hotel in downtown Atlanta, because that was my initial area that I wanted to be at, because I wanted to be with all that, with all the restaurants and stuff. But I'm glad I didn't, because when I just so happened to turn into MSNBC, and there was a demonstration of pro-Trump supporters at the state capitol in Atlanta. And I was so glad that I did not stay at a hotel in the immediate area, because these were a bunch of rambunctious people. We almost had a similar event when they stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C. That was planned, that some of your members of Congress was involved in the planning. They gave money. They supplied all of these resources, plane, transportation, the whole 9 yards. Even on the day before it happened, they gave tours to some of these folks at the Capitol the day that it happened.
well,
But
I
they
don't
want to
follow.
blame all of this on, all of this on mental health, and miss me with that.
You know, it's a joke about that is that the president's spokesperson, this young woman, I felt so bad for her. She was grilled by Congress, but she told the truth. And she said she turned to Trump when the rioting started happening and said, would you call this off? And he said, no, I will not. Mike Pence tried to do something to get it. And Trump said, no, I will not stop this rioting. This is the choice of Americans. Now, this is his spokesperson in front of Congress testifying under oath the reality of what happened that day. So, you know, I've got about 2 minutes and then I do have to run, but I would love to leave this one message. Because we're talking about mental health, it is a responsibility. And we cannot use it as an excuse for our drinking, overeating, or whatever else we are doing. We got to get out of denial. This interview with you was perfect because we covered so many different topics. We exposed the truth on things that people don't want to know the truth about. The biggest thing that we need to do today is to take self-responsibility. Quit blaming your lack of joy, your lack of money, your lack of health, your lack of whatever on other people. Start taking responsibility. Raise your hand if you're drinking too much, eating too much. Raise your hand if you're watching too much television, too much social media, too many video games. Admit it. The first step to change is admitting that you have an error, admitting that you're doing something inappropriate. If you can take that stance today, as we're talking to you about these important issues, again, 365 days from now, you're going to be a totally different person.
And I know you mentioned this many times throughout the podcast, but how can people reach you?
Thank you very much. Just talkdavid.com. It's the easiest website in the world to remember because all I do is talk. So talkdavid.com. Go there. You can find out everything we offer and definitely join the free program, Helping Americans Heal.
Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have an excuse now. You don't have an excuse. If you really want to take control of your mental health, you got a free resource right here. You got a free resource right here. No excuses.
Amen.
And I do encourage you to take advantage of that. And David, you already mentioned where they can have access to your book is on Amazon.com.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
All 13 books are there. So knock yourself out. You'll love them all.
Great. Okay. And we're definitely going to have a part 2 on this because I'm quite sure there's some other things that I wasn't to get into that we can talk about. So
that sounds
there will be
awesome.
There will be a part 2 to this. So and guys, we'll let you know, ladies, gentlemen, we will let you know when that future podcast would be. So with that being said, we're going to close out here. David, thank you so much for taking time out to be to share with us today. I even learned some stuff.
That's awesome. I had a great time and I really appreciate your energy and your invitation to be on the show. Let's do it again.
Oh, okay. So with that, we're going to close here. And thank you so much. As you know, tomorrow is the anniversary of 9/11. So we're going to have some reflections and some coverage on that on tomorrow. So please tune in. We're not going to have a guest per se, but if someone wants to come on and share their experiences, that's fine. But we won't have a set guest per se on tomorrow. We're just going to reflect and, like you said, we're going to process this and move into a place of healing. But again, the first step to getting help isn't meaning that you have a problem. And the next step is that you have to be vulnerable. That will do it for today. We have another great guest for next week. I hope that you tune in. Until then, enjoy your Saturday.